Thank you, Nikki. Good morning or good afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. Welcome to the fiscal year 2023 Community Services Block Grant Annual Reporting Webinar Series. You're joining us for our last formal webinar in the series where we'll cover the online data collection tool, often referred to as OLDC, Training and Technical Assistance. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. For today's webinar, I'm going to introduce you to the team that'll be presenting for today. And I also want you to also retain a lot of this information because this will be the team supporting our CSBG network to ensure that we have a successful and on-time submission for the fiscal year 2023 annual report. My name is Minette Galindo, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the Policy, Data, and Evaluation Branch Chief here in the Division of Community Assistance. Joining me today across the PDE branch is Lena Cotin-Chan, Charles Cheer, Melanie Durley, Kayla Lennon, Monique Alcantara, and Nikki Frazier-Curry. You'll hear from all of the members of the team today, each that have their own regional assignments, and we'll talk a little bit about the resources they'll be able to provide to you all. Well, you'll hear from them today on how to properly use OLDC for the submission of the CSBG annual report for FY 2023. And thank you. Today for our overview, we're going to cover the reporting requirements, the OLDC overview, accessing OLDC, submitting the annual report by module, and key resources. I am now going to turn it over to Kayla to discuss the reporting requirements review. Kayla.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Minette. As we mentioned earlier, we will first discuss reporting requirements and why we report. Some of this should serve as a refresher if you were able to attend some of our earlier webinars this year, but of course, we want to make sure that we review them again. And you can go ahead and head to the next slide. And here we have it, the statutory authority. The CSBG Act, Section 7(8)(e) outlines the requirements of the CSBG Act, including the requirement to submit annually, provide a measured performance of the state, or sections B, D, G, H, and I, an account of expenditures of funds, including administrative cost, or section E, and a description of training and technical assistance offered by the state, or section F. Next slide. And this overview also may look familiar to you. As we discuss additional targeted TTA, there will be dedicated webinars to unpack each of these critical steps. And today's webinar is focused on OLDC and going over that programming. And we can go to the next slide. Please note that March 31st falls on a Sunday, and OCS will observe Monday, April 1st at 11:50 p.m. ET as the adjusted due date for the annual report through the online data collection system. States are expected to submit the annual report, CARES reports together where applicable. States should be already familiar with the integrated strategy OCS is using to collect information for the annual report, and both supplemental grants are awarded and we can refer to our DCL, which we will put in the chat. Later during the webinar, my colleague Melanie will reiterate the complete submission of the annual report. And we can move to the next slide. Just to emphasize why we report, this is truly a shared responsibility across the network at the federal, state, local, and national levels. It is very important to work with your internal and external colleagues when completing and submitting all modules of the annual report. While in the CSBG state plan, you report your plan for next year. The CSBG annual report documents critical activities and outcomes, tracks results from year to year, and assures accountability performance at the state, local, and federal levels of the CSBG network. OCS uses this information to then show stakeholders and agencies efficiency, effectiveness, and overall financial condition, as well as to inform future training and technical assistance. There has been an increased conversations and about outcomes management, performance management, and evidence-based practices. These are becoming the gold standard in the public sector, and we really want to make sure that we are staying up to date with these standards to show just how much it matters to CSBG and to the fight against poverty. I will now pass it to Nikki to give an OLDC overview.
Thanks, Kayla. I will now do an overview of what OLDC is and account roles and permissions. The online data collection system is a reporting system within Grant Solutions. It allows secure submission of data and reports and permits different roles for different functions. There are differences in the requirements and features within reports. For example, unlike the CSBG state plan, certification by an authorized official is not required for annual reports. You will access OLDC via Grant Solutions, which is linked to your login.gov account. It is mandatory that users have their own account. In order to view, complete, and submit CSBG reports, CSBG must be added to your account. Only state personnel should have access to your state OLDC account. We recommend that each state have at least one data entry person, grant administrator, and authorized official. More than one person can be assigned the same role. I'll now go over the individual roles and permissions within OLDC. The data entry person is a supporting role, and the person can initiate, edit, and add attachments. This role cannot submit or unsubmit reports. Grant administrator is responsible for administering the CSBG program and can perform all report functions. This role does not have permission restrictions. The authorized official can view and certify reports. Other actions, for example, submit and unsubmit, can be added to persons having the data entry person role or authorized official role. Let's now review how to access OLDC. For new users, to gain access to OLDC via Grant Solutions, you must complete and submit the recipient user account request form. Along with that, you must submit your OLDC access form. You'll enter information directly on this form as it is a Word document. Include the organization, city, and the street on the address line. Double-click on the check boxes to select the option to check the box. Do not convert the document to another file, for example, a PDF. We do know that some people print it out and then hand fill it in. It's just easier to use the Word document and complete the form as such within the Word platform. For existing users, you will link to login.gov. This is a requirement to get into Grant Solutions. You will verify your account and your access levels, and this will allow you to access the correct access to all reports. For technical assistance, please use CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. This is our new resource email address for OLDC assistance within the Division of Community Assistance. Now we have the Grant Solutions login screen. This is the home screen for Grant Solutions. It is grantsolutions.gov. Once on the Grant Solutions homepage, you'll click login. That is in the upper right corner. And Grant Solutions, you can use Grant Solutions. It is accessible via Google Chrome, Firefox, or Microsoft Edge. It is not compatible with Internet Explorer. And on the next screen, you will enter your username and password. I'm pausing for 1 second. On the screen, it is circled the login.gov screen. You will log in through your login.gov account where you will enter your username and password. The email address associated with your Grant Solutions account must be linked to your Grant Solutions account. This is a requirement. And if you have not already linked your account, please do so as soon as possible. Grant Solutions offers step-by-step instructions on how to create a login.gov account. And these links are in the PowerPoint and will be put in the chat also. And examples of these resources are creating a login.gov account and adding a Grant Solutions email address to a login.gov account. And again, if you encounter any issues with logging in, please contact CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. Once you've logged into Grant Solutions, you will be on my grants list page. You'll select online data collection from the drop down, which is next to your initials at the top right of the screen. Once you log into OLDC, if you have not already done so, you can go to the enhanced version of OLDC. That is what we're showing right now. And on this, you will see the dashboard. My recent activity report, and actions. When you're on the enhanced screen, you can toggle back to the regular version. However, the enhanced version has more capabilities. So the first tab on the dashboard is my recent activity. My recent activity displays all reports recently accessed by the user. To access historical data, use report form entry from the main menu. The activity report, the possible actions include view to view a report in read-only mode, edit to access the report screen in edit mode, and then report status. And that is to navigate to the report form status page. I'll now turn it back over to Kayla on accessing annual report modules. Kayla?
Thank you, Nikki. And we can move to the next slide. I'll briefly speak about accessing annual report modules. And once you're in OLDC, in order to submit your annual report, you'll click the report form entry button on the left side of your screen, and it's highlighted in yellow on the screen. And we can move to the next slide. And after you do that, under the last tab, Report Due, you can access reports that are currently available for submission. Once submitted, it is removed from this tab, but remains accessible from the My Recent Activity and Activity Report tabs from the Report Form entry menu. From the Report Due screen, you can review a report, start a new report, edit an existing report, or navigate to the report form status page. These 3 steps are the same regardless of which module you are trying to access. And as seen on screen, you will choose the drop-down tabs for program name, grantee name, and report name to select the correct program, your state, tribe, or territory name, and the name of the module that you're submitting. And after we move to the next slide, I'll pass it to my colleague Lena to speak about Module 1.
Thank you, Kayla. Next slide. We will now review key functions in Module 1, which include initialize, edit, clearing errors, validate, and Module 1 submission. Next slide. So in prior years, there was the option to select new, revise, create. Now this is replaced with icons. Specifically, the first sign or icon that you will see is a plus sign. Module 1 is reported based on the federal fiscal year. So first thing that you'll do, you'll locate the correct reporting period, which is for this reporting season is October 1st, 2022 to September 30th of 2023. Then you will click on plus sign. Plus sign initializes the report. And once you have initialized the report, the plus sign that you initially saw will be replaced with the new actions. Also, just as a reminder, Module 1 prepopulates with year 2 of your federal fiscal year 2022 CSBG state plan or year 1 of your fiscal year 2023 CSBG state plan. Next slide. So once you click on the plus sign, it will take you to this report section screen that has section actions that you will be able to choose from. So you will have clear section data. It deletes all the data. Then you will have edit section. It opens the form section in a data entry version, and then print section opens a new browser window with a report in a print-friendly version. Next slide. So to begin editing, select drop-down arrow under perform action, choose edit section in a drop-down menu, and then click go. Next slide. So there are different types of responses. So we have editable narratives that allow you to enter text in white text fields, like as you can see in item A1D. And if you click one, yeah. So then we have radio buttons. They allow you for singular response. To change your response, select a new radio button. Yep. And lastly, there are checkboxes that allow you for multiple responses. You can select and unselect as needed. Next slide. Thank you. For several questions, you will see that there's already a response populated. When we create this report, we created it so that certain responses are auto-filled from your CSBG state plan. So we have pre-populations, which means that data was populated from CSBG state plan. It comes in two forms. It read only. You will have a blue background. You won't be able to edit those fields. And then the editable fields with white background. So of course, you'll be able to edit those. This is applicable to all data entry fields, text boxes, checkboxes, and radio buttons. Upon initializing module 1, first check if your CSBG eligible entity list section C is pre-populated. If not, please email csbgdata@acf.hhs.gov. Next slide. Next, we have auto-populations, which means that data populated from your current CSBG annual report. It is all read only, so it will have blue background. You will not be able to edit any of those fields. You must validate for it to take an effect. Next slide. There are some fields that have auto calculation, specifically in section D and section E. Auto calculation fields are read only. Percentages and totals calculate automatically, and grant recipient must validate for that to take an effect. Next slide. Finally, we have cell level attachments, which allow you to add additional information. Attachments are never pulled over. They do not transfer over. To add an attachment, select the paperclip to attach documents. And as a reminder, please use the file naming convention that includes the annual report question number. OCS only accepts cell level attachments for module 1. And with that, I will hand it over to Monique.
Monique, we can't hear you.
Monique, you're coming through really low. Nikki, can you hear me now? There we go.
If I unmute, I can't.
Okay. Okay. We have a slight echo, everyone, so just give us a few seconds. We're broadcasting this directly from the ACF central office.
Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yes, nice and clear.
Perfect. From the report section screen, you can identify the status of each section under the section status column. The status types are initialized, saved, validated, and validated with warnings, or saved with errors. If a section shows as initialized, it means that you have not begun data entry for that section. If it shows as saved, it means that you have not yet validated the form. If the section shows as saved validated or validated with warnings, then the section is ready for submission. If the section shows as saved with errors, you must review the section or sections to clear the errors prior to submitting. Let's discuss how to clear errors. Errors are located at the top of each section and red. It means that a question or questions were missed that still requires a response. The red text identifies a question that needs a response. In this image, the question is B.1. Each error also has a go-to error link and a long description link. The go-to error link will jump to the question within the section. This is especially useful for longer sections. The long description further explains how to clear the error for the specific question. Once you have responded to all questions with an error, be sure to select validate and the error or errors will clear. If you are unable to clear an error, please inform your data and evaluation specialist and copy CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. As I noted earlier, there's also validated with warnings section status. While this section is submittable, OCS encourages you to review sections with warnings to verify that you did not accidentally miss a question. Like errors, warnings can be found at the top of each section. However, warnings show an orange text rather than red text. For any question that has a warning, OLDC is signifying that you may have missed this question. However, for questions with warnings, you are not required to provide a response. Just like errors, each warning also has a go-to link error and a long description. These links function the same as the links under the errors. If you do not update or add a response after reviewing the warnings, you can return to the report section screen. If you did make additional revisions, be sure to validate it again prior to returning to the report section screen. Once all sections show as saved validated or validated with warnings, the submit button appears on the report section screen. If there are warnings, you will have the option to submit with warnings. If there are no warnings, this button will show as submit. As a reminder, you can submit Module 1 with warnings. I'll now hand it to my colleague, Charles, to discuss Module 3.
You're right. Thank you, Monique. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and talk about Module 3 and focus on 4 key functions, which are steps in submission for Module 3: initialize, form level attachments, validate, and then submit. Next slide, please. As Lena has described earlier with Module 1, there has been a change to Module 3 in that there was an option for new, revise, and create. And in place of that now, there's a plus sign, which would initialize a new report from Module 3. You're going to want to make sure that you choose the right year. And in this case, it would be 10/1/22 to 9/30/2023. And you would want to go ahead and click on that plus sign there that is circled with a yellow circle. After doing that, it'll take you to form level attachments. Form level attachments allow you to add additional information by attaching files. So you'd want to select View, Add Attachments to attach one file at a time. Please note that OCS only accepts form level attachments for Module 3. Next slide, please. Please also note that when you do upload forms for Module 3, that we'd highly suggest and prefer a particular naming convention. And so here is an example. So the example here would be fiscal year 2023, FY23, underscore, and then the state abbreviation, which would be Alaska here, underscore M3 from Module 3. And then the name of the eligible entity, and in this case, it would be Rural Alaska Cap Incorporated. The number following that in this naming convention is actually the UEI. So please be sure to add that. Lastly, if it's a file that has, if it's files related to, multiple files related to a specific eligible entity, please do add a sequence of numbers. So here we put 1 of 10, suggesting that this file here is the first of 10 files for Rural Alaska Cap Incorporated. Okay. Next slide. Thank you. So the next, so here would be an example of how you would go ahead and add individual files. So you would choose file, click on that, and then you would go ahead and add files one at a time. Next slide, please. Once you upload the files, you'd want to confirm uploading. And how you would do that is that you'd see files appear under form level attachments. And this would be denoted in the picture here, where there's an arrow that says file appears here, pointing to a highlighted red box. And here you'll see the file name, the uploaded date, the uploaded status, and who it's uploaded by. Note that right here in this picture, it says pending, and this is while it's processing. But if you were to refresh, it should update its status to being successful. Next slide, please. For the last step of uploading Module 3 information, you'd want to do validation. And so to do so, you'd go ahead and click on the validate button, and that would screen for errors. If there's no errors, then you'd go ahead and submit, and that would be a successful submission of Module 3. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back on to Monique to talk further about submitting Modules 2 and 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's discuss submitting modules 2 and 4. The key functions for modules 2 and 4 are exporting XMLs, which was discussed during the Smart Form refresher, so we will not review it again today. Within OLDC, you'll be able to upload your XMLs, save XMLs, which is an automated function in OLDC, validate the state level form, and submit the state level form. I'll also show you how to review the data for each CSBG eligible entity within your state and the CSBG state level aggregate form. Report data upload. Once you're logged into Grant Solutions and you have access to the OLDC homepage, you'll first have to upload the XMLs. To do so, you'll select Report Data Upload on the left-hand side of the OLDC homepage. Then you'll complete the fields available. So first you'll select your applicable program. The reports must be uploaded separately for each grant. And then you'll select your state. It should be the only option available to you. And then you'll select the appropriate module. Modules must also be uploaded separately. All smart forms for the modules, however, all the XMLs for the modules, sorry, not smart forms, can be uploaded at one time. Once you have selected the module, you'll then select the appropriate report period. For fiscal year 2023, the report period will be October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023. Once you select the report period, an option to add files appears, which is this drag a file or click here to upload. I will walk through uploading multiple files at once. So what you'll have to do is open your folder that contains the XMLs. You can select all of the files that you need to drag, and then you'll drag them to the file upload box. A file upload box shows as uploading in progress, and then once complete, you'll receive a confirmation. And it'll say successfully uploaded X amount of files. So in our example, we uploaded 3, so you can see that it uploaded 3 files. You'll then click OK. The file upload box will now show as upload complete with a green check mark that signifies that you have uploaded a correct file and the system has accepted the files. Next, you'll scroll down to where it says My Upload Status and click the plus sign to the right of the box. This will display all uploaded XMLs, including XMLs from previous years. You'll see that there is the file name for each XML, the status of the document, which can either be pending, saved, or failed, the date that you uploaded it, which provides the date and time of the upload, and the actions, which allows you to view the form and the status of that form. Under the upload status, the 3 statuses are pending, saved, and failed. Pending means that the system is still reading the document or the XML to check for the correctness of the form and completing a virus scan, which may take a few minutes. Saved confirms that the form is correct and saved into OLDC. After all forms are in save status for a particular module, you can proceed to submission. And then failed, the form failed, and in this case, you should email your data and evaluation specialist and copy CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. Next slide. Now we're going to go into submitting the state level form. So to do so, you'll, I'm sorry, we didn't include this in the slides, but you will have to go back to the OLDC homepage, select report form entry, and then complete the fields in the way that Lena showed earlier in this slideshow. And then, but you'll be selecting module 2 or module 4. And you will have to do this for both modules. So we are looking at the state level form, which is the first row for each module. In this example, we have Arkansas, and then under the state level form, you'll see the eligible entity level forms, which we'll come back to that in a little bit later. The state level form is a roll-up of the eligible entity submissions, and it rolls all the data up into the state level form, except for narratives and checkboxes. The state level form will initially be in save status, and you'll have to view the state level form in order to submit. Next slide. So to view the state level form, you'll select the pencil and paper icon or the edit icon, and it'll take you into the state level form. Once there, you'll see the options to view and add attachments. This is where you'll add any attachments if you have comments as applicable. If you have comments separated into module 2 comments and module 4 comments, you'll upload them or attach them to the correct module. If you only have one form that contains both module 2 and module 4 comments, you can attach them to the module 2 form. You'll then select validate. There will be no errors, as errors are not built into module 2 and module 4. And then next slide. The submit option will appear and you'll click submit. And this will officially submit your module 2 and module 4 data to OCS. Now we're going to take a brief second. We're going to go into a live demo. And so while Nikki pulls that up, there is an expectation that states are conducting their own internal review of the data. And therefore, we want to demonstrate through a live demo how to review the data within OLDC as a final check prior to submission. This is a useful tool to mitigate issues during the quality assurance review. And so we want to, OCS wants to ensure that we are enabling you and giving you all the tools you need to make that review process a little bit easier on you. So while Nikki pulls up the staging site, again, it is a staging site, so any data that you see is not real data. And any actions that we take are not real actions on the state that we're going to complete. And as I mentioned earlier, when Nikki's able to pull it up, we can look at the state aggregate data and we can look at each eligible entity. And we do recommend that you do review each a few eligible entities just to ensure that the data actually uploaded correctly after you've completed uploading the XMLs. And I will pause for a second as well.
I'm here, Monique. I just had the that site up, so
I'll wait until you're sharing and then we'll walk through the live demo.
okay. Thank you, everyone, for your patience.
It does appear that we're having a slight technical issue, so we are going to move to completing the submissions, which my colleague Melanie will walk through. And if we can get the live demo to work, then we'll come back to that at the end.
Thank you, Monique, for reviewing all that goes into module 2 and 4 submission. As stated,
Give me a second, Melanie. She still needs to start sharing slides again.
oh, next slide. Thank you, Monique. As states are working with their eligible entities to complete the submission for modules 2 and 4, we want to reiterate what is a complete submission. A complete submission is not only important for reporting, but it also has implications on future reporting because if OCS does not receive a complete submission, there will be delays in the release of future smart forms, as well as delays in the federal review of submitted data. Therefore, we want to make sure that we provide some specific guidance. As this graphic shows, a complete submission of modules 2 and 4 includes uploading all XMLs for all reporting entities. This means that all XMLs must be uploaded and saved successfully, and the state level form is submitted. And lastly, please include any comments that may provide additional clarity or context to your data. Next slide. A couple of final reminders as we aim for a successful and timely annual report season. Each module is its own submission, but the combination of submitting all of the modules equals an annual report submission. Module 1 is directly entered into OLDC and is based on the federal fiscal year, while Module 2 is predicated on reporting period that the state has indicated in their plan and reporting. I'll now turn it back to Manette to review resources to support you with your reporting.
Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, everyone. So as we're closing out the webinar series, we do want to highlight some real-time resources, some on-demand resources, as well as some targeted training and technical assistance. But before I jump into that, I do want to also add in the entire webinar series, I forgot to mention it earlier, we have had a 4-question poll at the end. Our goal is to make sure that the TNTA that we're providing is helpful and it's responsive to the needs of our grant recipients. So we do ask that you stick around for a brief 4-question poll that Nikki will lead. And we shared this in the last couple of webinars, but OLDC is officially live and able to begin accepting fiscal year 2023 annual report submissions. So if you haven't already started, please feel free to go ahead and do so. OCS will be releasing a Dear Colleague letter shortly that also has the Module 1 working document that has been requested by states. Now, jumping back into the resources. So the first, thank you, are the regional contacts. We consider this a real-time resource because these are the federal staff members that are here to provide support. Many of you are familiar with your program specialists, but across the Division of Community Assistance, you now have an entire CSBG team, which includes your data and evaluation specialists and your financial analysts, along with your program specialists. As we've shared, we're committed to providing that direct support. So the staff here are your real-time resources if you need to walk through an element together or you have a targeted question. Also available to you is CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. My team has provided that email a few times, but if you have issues with OLDC or questions around your annual report, please always email your team here and copy CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov if it pertains to the annual report or OLDC. Next slide, please. The next one are your on-demand resources. So these are the things that are available should you need them, and they're available hopefully at your fingertips. During the course of the webinar series, we've linked a myriad of resources from the federal office, our partners under our discretionary portfolio, and we want to highlight these on-demand resources. The first is the CSBG homepage. If you go to the performance management block under the second half of our page, it also includes the CSBG events calendar. All of the webinars that we've hosted this fiscal year have been recorded. Several of them have already been posted. Either the PowerPoints themselves and the recordings are pending, and they'll be posted to YouTube with the links available on the webinars page as well. Another key piece is our policy and guidance corner, which includes our Dear Colleague letters, our information memorandums, also known as our IMs, as well as our action transmittals, our ATs. If you reference all of the policy and guidance for the fiscal year 2023 annual report submission, they typically will link back to the PDF of the annual report, which has citations for several of the policy and guidance listed over the last few years for OCS for the CSBG annual report. Next slide. And then the final is some one-on-one time and some targeted training and technical assistance. Now that we've wrapped up the formal webinar series, we did want to provide these 2 key dates as virtual office hours. We ask that you save these 2 dates. So the CSBG annual report virtual office hours modeled similarly after the office hours that our program operations colleagues host for their state plan. On Tuesday, January 30th from 11 to 12 p.m. Eastern time, and Thursday, February 6th, 2024 from 3 to 4 Eastern time. We are hosting virtual office hours there. You can pop in as needed. And during that time, we'll have breakout sessions. As you saw before, we have an entire staff here that are assigned by region. So if you're coming in from a specific region and you want to have a one-on-one discussion, we can put you into a virtual breakout space to talk about the needs that you have. Our goal with kind of updating the TNTA that we've provided this year was that you had all the issued guidance, you've had these webinars to walk through the different components, and by the time these office hours roll around, you're putting the final bells and whistles on your annual report, but you have a couple of questions or you're contending with an issue. Please note that this does not preclude you from emailing your data and evaluation specialist at any point in time leading up into the annual report submission process. If you have questions or there was something that was reviewed on one of the webinars and you need it broken down, we're happy to do so. One other quick note, all of our states by this point should have received an email from their data and evaluation specialists with their fiscal year 2023 SMART forms. If you were a state that maybe the firewalls on your state system precluded you from getting those attachments, we have identified a solution, and several of my staff have been emailing to confirm to make sure that you receive those. If you have received those, we cannot stress enough, please make sure that you open those zip files, ensure that you can access those SMART forms and that all of the export to XML buttons are functioning properly. That's a critical piece because as you're distributing them to your agency, you want to make sure that the form works properly. So when they send it back, you as a state have the ability to export that to an XML to go through the process that my team walked through to today. The other piece that we've shared on previous webinars that I also want to make sure that we retain and share with you all is it is critical to retain the records at the agency and state level for the submission of the annual report. Please encourage your agencies to hold on to the information that they use to submit those SMART forms directly to you all as states. That'll be important because if there needs to be any edits to the information during the quality assurance review process, it will minimize some of the back and forth when you have to make those subsequent edits. So retain the information and you will get a successful email noting a successful closeout. That in that point, you can make sure that you provide any updated guidance to your respective agencies. Next slide, please. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Nikki to get us started with our Q&A pod. And as one additional reminder, please do stay on the line for a brief 4-question survey to help us make sure that we're fine-tuning these types of webinars for future years. Nikki, back to you.
Thanks, Manette. We'll check the Q&A. We did get one question in the Q&A pod. Is the grant solution site compatible with Safari? And if anyone knows the answer to that question.
In my experience, it has been working at previous operating divisions in HHS. I would say give it a shot. And if it does not work, you can always download Chrome as a free browser on an Apple device if you don't use Safari. And it looks like we were able to get that demo to work. Nikki, were there any other questions that are coming through? Maybe we can pop over to do that demo.
There's one more, and if
Okay.
that's the last one, then we can answer that, and we'll pop it over to Monique. Were the smart forms sent to states that have not finalized the fiscal year 2022 annual report?
So that was actually one of the elements that Melanie brought up when she showed that kind of half circle image. Just to, in full transparency, when we mentioned that the delayed submission of the previous year report will delay future releases of smart forms, the smart forms are designed and they're predicated off of the previous year data. So if you're a state that hasn't received it, when we sent those emails out, we noted, and I think in the last webinar, that if you have not received it yet, it's likely due to that. If you're a particular state where you haven't seen an email from anyone within OCS, please reach out to CSBG data at acf.hhs.gov. I'm going to ask one of my staff members to put that in the chat so we can confirm. But yes, that is likely. If you haven't seen anything, it's likely because we're still waiting on information in order for us to generate those smart forms. But do email us as soon as possible so we can make sure that we check the status of that particular state, depending on who the question's coming from. Any other questions, Nikki?
No, that was the last one that was in there, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Okay, well, what we're gonna do, we're gonna go a little off course here now that we got that demo back up and running, and we'll turn it back over to Monique to do a live demo in our staging site so you all can see some of the elements that she demonstrated in her slide presentation.
Okay, Minette, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
We can see it.
Perfect. So again, I am in the staging site, so any data or anything that any actions you see me perform, it's in the staging site. It's not affecting any real live data. And again, the reason we're showing this is so that you can do an extra validation or extra check to ensure that the eligible entity data uploaded correctly. And also, if you just want to view the eligible entity data as OCS is seeing it, so when you do get a review memo and something doesn't appear right, you can log into OLDC and you can see exactly how we're seeing it. So once you're logged into OLDC and you're on the OLDC homepage, you'll select report form entry. And then you'll complete the form. For the purposes of this demo, I am going to select the state of Alabama, and then I'm going to look at module 2. I'm going to select 2022 data, mainly because I know we have it all uploaded. Now to view, as I mentioned earlier, the first line is always the state level data, and that's the aggregated data, which is the roll up of all the eligible entity data, with the exception of narratives and checkboxes, into one state level form. And so to view the state level form, you select the eye icon for view, the view report, and then you can view each section, much like module 1. So you select action, select view, and then select go. And then you'll see that's an aggregated roll up of all the eligible entity data within your state. And again, checkboxes do not roll up because it's different. So we don't see that for the reporting period or the agency capacity data. And at the top, you can scroll to the next section and see section B and the roll up of this information, as well as section C and the roll up of this information. As I mentioned, if we go back to the form selection, you can also look at each eligible entity level data as well. Again, you would select the I. And it will take you to this home screen, and then you can select which section, view section, select go. And then you can view the data for that eligible entity. And here you'll see that the checkboxes are selected as well as the number figures. And again, this is just useful to you if you want to verify that the data uploaded correctly. And also once you receive the review memo, if the information that you're seeing in your smart form or in your state database doesn't quite align with the information you're seeing in the review memo, you can come to OLDC and see exactly what OCS is seeing during the quality assurance review, as well as the federal review prior to sending the review memo to the state. And so with that, I will stop sharing as well and hand it back to Minette.
Thank you, Monique. I'll wait for the slides to pop back up. And also, if there are any questions, please feel free to continue popping those in the chat. We'll wait a couple of minutes and then we will likely get our poll started. But I'll see, Nikki, do we have any other questions or anything in the chat we need to address?
No, we don't. You can close it out and I can go to the poll.
Okay, so the poll should be coming up and it's a brief 4-question poll. And we would really appreciate you all filling that out so we can make sure that we're updating these webinars in the future to be most helpful and useful to you all. I'll turn it back to you, Nikki. We're gonna stop the recording here.
Yes.